In the beginning of the film, we are shown a beautiful nurse. She was taking care of her patient in the hospital. The patient was an old woman whose condition was very bad. She was also having trouble breathing. That's why the nurse, whose name is Gwen, comes to that woman and turns off her oxygen. She also shut down her breathing tube. Because of this, the old woman's breath stopped. Surprisingly, after that, Gwen makes noise in the hospital. She calls the doctor. When the doctors came and were saving that old woman, Gwen was standing by the door laughing. Here we find out that Gwen is a psychotic nurse. She liked to see her patients in pain. Anyway, the doctors saved that old woman. Gwen leaves after seeing all this. Looking at her, it could be assumed that she had no regret for such an act. In the film, we are shown a scene in which a girl named Mira is living happily with her husband and son. When her husband was talking to him, his son came to him and said, "Mom, my feet are hurting." Here we find out that Mira's son had a disease due to which he could not walk properly without support. Mira talks to her husband about her son, who climbs the stairs himself. Mira's husband hears this and says, "Oh, come on, don't be so scared. Nothing happens to our son." Then we see Gwen, a psycho nurse in Mira's house whom Mira had kept to take care of her son. Here, Gwen used to live in Mira's house like a family member. Now the four of them have breakfast together. During breakfast, Mira's son dropped his stretchers on the stairs, with whose support he used to walk. But as we know, she can't do the right thing. She had loosened her bench so that when Mira's son took her away, she would fall down. Gwen used to do all this for her own fun, as we saw in the beginning of the story. Anyway, after this, Mira's husband was ready to go to the office. He stands near Mira. Gwen was jealous of Mira because she started liking Mira's husband. Meanwhile, Mira's friend comes home who was sitting and talking to Mira. At that time, Gwen started listening to her while playing with Mira's son. Mira's friend was telling her, "Mira, you will have to hire another nurse for your son. I think your son and husband have started liking Gwen a little too much." Mira tells her friend, "No, it's not like that. You are thinking too much." Meanwhile, Mira hears her son's voice. She says, "You know, Gwen did all this." She scolds Gwen a lot because of her son's fall because she feels that she did not take good care of him. Her son says to Mira, "No, Mom, this is not because of Gwen. It was all my fault." Mira calls the doctor, and she has hired a new nurse for her son. At night, she also apologizes to Gwen for shouting at her for no reason. Gwen says, "No, it's not your fault." Gwen is a mother, and a mother is very worried about her child. And although we know that Gwen did all this, after that she made tea for Mira, which was probably for free. We see Mira, who joins that society in which there were people like her son. They all had the same disease. Mira tells them and starts crying. She says, "I feel very bad." After that, she comes home. Gwen gives her tea, which she had made for her. As soon as Mira drank tea, she fell asleep. After a while, the doctor comes home. When Mira was sleeping, she brought her son's stretcher. When she was going to give it to Dr. Mira's son, Gwen stopped her and said, "You go, I will give it to him." On the way, the doctor says, "I may know you. I have seen you somewhere." As soon as Mira wakes up, she says, "I promise, I will definitely tell you." On the same evening, Gwen goes to the doctor's house and tells him, "You were right, you know me. I also often remember you." After saying this, she went to the doctor and put an injection in his arm. Here we find out that at the beginning of the story, the doctor saved the life of the old woman. Gwen was afraid that Dr. Mira's husband would not know this, so she gave him a drug injection and killed him. On the same night, Mira gets a call from a man who says his name is David. He says, "I am a member of the same society that you have joined because of your son's disease. He also tells me that the disease that your son has is also mine." The picture that David had put in his profile is a little blurry, which he was not able to see correctly. Here David tells us that his wife is dead. "That's why I have kept a nurse for my son." Mira listens to this and says, "You did very well." That's when we find out that the man named David was no one else but Gwen, who was talking to Mira by changing her voice with the help of a computer. In the morning, her friend comes to Mira's house and says that she dropped something on Mira's husband's shirt. Gwen takes Mira's husband's shirt to the laundry to clean it. That's when Mira's friend went inside to take her purse, and she saw that Gwen was smelling Mira's husband's shirt. She feels a little strange to see this, and she also had a doubt that Gwen had started liking Mira's husband. But she does not tell this to her friend Mira because she is afraid that her family might be ruined. At night, Gwen again talks to Mira as David and asks her about her son. Mira says that yes, my son is a little normal now, but I did not like it at all the day he fell. After talking so much, Gwen quickly goes to Mira so that she can catch him. She is talking to a man, and she was also successful in this game. On the way, she says to Mira's husband, "I just heard Mira. She was probably talking to someone." She wanted Mira's husband to doubt her and leave her, but here her game goes upside down. Mira's husband speaks in favor of his wife and says that she is doing a lot of work these days, and that her sleep is also not complete. Maybe that's why she is a little worried. After hearing all this, Gwen hugged Mira's husband, said goodnight and left. Gwen actually wanted to get Mira's husband anyway. The next morning, we see that Gwen and Mira's husband were looking for an excuse to sleep. When Mira wakes up, Gwen has done all the work in her house. Then she gets a call from her friend, who thanks Mira, saying that you remembered my birthday, but Mira is a little confused and surprised because she did not send the flowers. Gwen comes to her and says that you forgot your friend's birthday, so I sent flowers to her house. Mira starts walking, unconscious. Mira says that maybe I should get checked by a doctor. Don't talk to my husband about this. Gwen says, why do you need to go to the doctor? I will take your blood sample and get it tested in the lab. Now at night, Gwen talks to Mira again as David. Mira tells her about her problems. Then her husband and son came here. Seeing Jeannie, Mira cuts the call. Mira wanted to take her son to the room, but she was sleeping on the sofa. Then she gets a message that David is a fraud. When Mira's husband comes to her in the morning, he sees the message on his phone. She does not understand who David is, or why Mira talks to him. At the same time, her son also wonders why his mother is sleeping so much. Gwen did all the work at Mira's house. Still, Mira thought she was wrong, so now she apologizes to Gwen. Then Mira gets a message again that David is a fraud. Gwen also read it. Mira somehow prepares herself to go to the office. And she came to the office. She meets her friend and tells him that my blood reports are absolutely correct, and Gwen was right. I just need rest. Her friend says, should I tell you something? Show that doctor who has nothing to do with Gwen. Then she gets a letter from David, in which it was written that the man who is messaging you about me wants to defame you. Then she also gets a letter from that man who is saying that your son's life is in danger. After reading these two emails, Mira comes home, and she was also very worried. She had also told Gwen about this. And she says to meet that man. I'm going to the cafe in the evening. Mira tells him that Gwen's words are true. His wife is cheating on him. The next morning, Mira goes to a cafe to meet that man, who was actually David. He says that my name is David and I have never talked to you. He also says that my wife has blood cancer. One day, he got a call from a man who used to talk to him. He told him not to go to the doctor, because of which my wife started listening to him. He also shows her a picture of that man. Then Mira comes to know that this picture is of the same man who is still talking to Mira as David. But still, Mira had no doubt about Gwen. Then outside, we see her husband who had come here following Mira. He also sees his wife hugging David, with which he believes that Mira is really cheating him. There was a friend of Mira's in the house who came to give her her bag. Gwen takes her bag home. Then Mira's friend says to Gwen, I know you like Mira's husband. I saw you wearing a shirt that day. Stay away from Mira's family. If you try to harm them even a little, then no one will be worse than him. Saying this, when she was about to leave, Gwen attacked him from behind with a big bullet. To kill him, she also gave him a drug injection, and then when she leaves there and comes home she sees Mira, who is cooking food. Gwen talks to him and steals the knife with which Mira was cutting vegetables. She now takes him to David's house, and here we come to know that Gwen had already been David's wife's nurse. And she talked to him as a man, and also told him to stop her husband. Here Gwen also kills David with the same knife, and she dropped Mira's phone which she had taken for his blood test, which seemed to indicate that Mira had killed David. That night, Mira's husband also came home in a state of intoxication because he was very upset because of his wife. Gwen tries to get close to him by looking at his message which was from David, in which it was written that I could not sleep because of my little boy. Then Mira's eyes fell on the bottle that was in her hand, on which it was written little boy. In what Gwen had written, she remembered that David and Gwen always used little boy love. When she goes to throw the water in the bottle that Gwen had given her, she feels like some powder is mixed in the water. Here Mira understood that the water was poisoned. Mira now goes to Gwen's room, where she finds a book written about poisonous drugs. She gets a lot of poisonous drugs from under the bed. Meanwhile, she sees that Gwen has come home. When Mira opens the door, Gwen understands that she did not drink water from the bottle because she was still awake. After drinking water, She went to the hospital with Mira's son, where she used to get her therapy. Mira wanted to stop her son, but he did not stop and went with Gwen. After Gwen and her son left, she again went to Gwen's room and started making videos in which she told about all the events in Gwen's life. She had also called her husband and told him about it. But when Gwen came home, she found out that Mira had found out everything about her. When she came home, Mira's son was not with her. Mira tells her to go to her son. On the way, Gwen tells Mira, "You know I have worked as a nurse for so many years. No one has ever kept me like a family member like you did when you woke me up in your house. So don't worry, I will kill you and take your place." Gwen was saying this because she liked Mira's husband. On the other hand, Mira's husband also comes home. When she does not meet Mira at home, she gets her phone on which she watches her recorded video, from which she also comes to know the reality of Gwen. On the other side, Gwen came home with Mira, where she told her that I had killed the doctor. Your friend Mira was very worried. She starts looking for her son at Gwen's house. She says that your son is still in the clinic. I have come here to kill you, and I have killed David with that knife on which you have fingerprints. The police will consider you a murderer, and your son and husband will hate you. That's why. When Mira started running from here, Gwen caught her and tried to escape from the house. In the end of the story, we are shown Mira, her husband, and her son, who have started living a happy life again. At the same time, Gwen was punished for committing so many murders, so you saw how dangerous Gwen was. If you keep anyone at home, then do inquire about it. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. And with this, the story of this movie ends here.